so Christmas morning, right? You hear about this explosion, and the first time you read the story or hear about it, the first thing you think is hopefully not anybody was killed, and nobody was. I mean, it's a minor miracle that nobody actually was killed in this. So then they start.
Hey, stop right there.
Yeah.
Thumbs up and a shout out to those 6 cops that evacuated everything, and the 2 very big cops at the end that split to the end of the streets and kept all the patrol cars back. Thumbs up to them. Yeah. All this first responders learnings from everything in America, and nobody else got hurt. Praise God.
You know what? And we will never hear the full story of the heroic efforts of these cops. When they heard that recorded message on this RV saying, if you hear this message, evacuate. If you hear this message, they were knocking on doors, saving lives. 6 cops. And, in the year of defund the police, the year thankfully ends with us understanding just how important they are. I mean, this is such a joke. Anybody that still believes in the defund the police movement, especially when you see the murder rates that have gone up. Minneapolis murder rate is up 74% over last year.
Atlanta.
Dallas is up 34%. Shootings, insane how much they're up. I mean, when you start peeling back and look at the number of cops that are taking early retirement, man, it's going to scare you for what's going on in the future. But kudos to those law enforcement officers in Nashville. It was unbelievable. So then you start learning more about this nut job, right? You automatically assume, well, what's this guy's problem? What's he trying to do?
Yeah.
Today, a story comes out that, now all the neighbors are going to start talking. Yesterday, one of the neighbors that talked to him at the mailbox said, oh, yeah, he was going to say that everybody's going to know my name in a few days. Today, one of his old friends was saying that he was a pot-smoking, cop-hating, kind of oddball weirdo. So he has to be weird. The other interesting backstories about this guy is he was sued by his own mother over these 2 pieces of property that he deeded to this woman, this 29-year-old executive in the entertainment industry. She works at AEG in Los Angeles. She now has 2 of the houses, one of the which Warner was living in. Warner is the name of the suspect. So it blows up this entire street, right? This RV explodes. And then you're thinking, why this street? And then, it's looking like the target was this AT&T building, which was on that 2nd Street in Nashville.
Not just any building.
Right, exactly.
Massive regional switch center.
Yes. So, cell phone services down throughout multiple states in the area, including Nashville. The flooding, from this explosion led to the services being outage. But, you're going to see some other stories now, maybe some conspiracy theories or people that are, looking into this thing a little bit deeper. But one of the things that AT&T control operations headquarter thing did there on 2nd Street was have something to do with the compilation of the voting in Georgia. All right. So there is some sort of connection between AT&T and that building in Nashville and what's going on as far as tabulations and data and things that are happening regarding the election in Georgia, the Senate runoff. So, And then, did you hear? But later in the day, they found another van in Tennessee that was recording the same or playing the same type of recorded message. But they have over 100 ATF and FBI agents on this thing. We're going to learn a lot more about this a lot sooner here. But this guy was an oddball. He apparently was paranoid about 5G technology. So it only makes sense that the AT&T building was what he was going after.
Tom,
I think this shows you kind of the dark side of passion. And the riots we saw this summer was the dark side of passion. And, it really disappoints me to see what's happening in America when you see people like this that are just, stepping up and doing it. It just kind of flipped me out.
Question becomes, can these events be prevented? Can these events, can Boston, can these types of events?
Not this
That's
one.
The question.
No way, because
I don't think we want a nanny state, but I think that there's a difference between those the 2 guys in Boston. Remember, one of them ran over his brother and killed him in the shootout. Let's just remember that. Family ties there, baby. I think what this is going to bring up, I'm going to be more aware of my neighbors. And if I got a neighbor that's on the fringe, it's not that I'm going to turn them in. It's like, wait, what's going on here? And I would hope it leads to an America that's not like a nanny state spying on your neighbors, but is aware of the people in your life and is aware of things, and people can get help. And I think we'll prevent, some of things like this. Those 2 guys in Boston, they were radicalized students. This was like a hard plan. This guy seems like he was a lonely, weird kook over time that took a horrible big step. I think.
Tom, question for you. Yeah. Question for you guys. Okay. So you remember that one movie with Tom Cruise that is arresting people on future crimes? What was the name of the movie? Minority Report, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think we're ever going to get to a point where one can based on searches you're making. For example, if I go on Google, okay, and I'm searching how to make a bomb, and I go and do searches like that for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, how to make a bomb to explode a building, how to make a bomb. Do you think there's any day, anytime soon that we'll get to a point where there's going to be a trigger to have somebody come in, you know, see why is this guy searching these kinds of, what can be done for people like this to be prevented? Can this be prevented?
100%. I mean,
Nashville's a beautiful city, man. This is, I lived there for a couple of years. So how can you prevent this stuff from happening?
I mean, think about it. Did we think a year ago that if you tweet something out that it could be censored? Okay, so even in this past year, we've seen where if you do something online, there's repercussions.
Yeah.
Right.
If you start talking about bombs or radical groups or I hate the FBI or things like that, you would think that they would, you know, be able to intercept this, especially if you couple that with he went down and bought 50,000 pounds of fertilizer, right? I mean, that's usually a bad mix to make a bomb. But the FBI said this guy wasn't even on their radar screen. They didn't even know about him. So you can have a lone wolf like this who's tactical, who's weird, who's crazy. I want to see what's going on with this 29-year-old executive in LA. I mean, she already deleted all her social media. So there's some sort of tie-in with her and this quack from Nashville that blew up 2nd Street. But sometimes just an infatuation for a woman can make you do stupid things.
Well, but what I'm trying to ask, my question is more from a perspective of, you're big on technology. You're a fan of technology. You're a believer in technology. We were talking about earlier with AWS doing $22 million in Q3, not $12 million Q3 on track. $12 billion in Q3. Yeah, and
Monster.
About to pass up some of these other guys, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But do you think there will be a time where we will have a technology that's going to say, be careful, this guy is scoring in a 80 percentile that he's about to ... where action can be taken to prevent behaviors like this. Do you think we'll ever get to that point?
We're in the baby stage of it right now because the United States Secret Service does this all the time. They scan, they have analyst groups, they have a ton of technology that's going out there looking at the inflammatory statements and see if develops a person of interest to go pre-interview. Secret Service will knock on your door and do an interview. You can go look up Secret Service interviews, Secret Service spot interviews, field interviews. There is a non-armed side of the Treasury Department that was working on counterfeiting and everything like that, the Treasury Department that is out there doing it. So in a small way, it's happening now where they're trying to use AI and other things to say, should we knock on somebody's door and go check them out before they do something? So in a small way, it's happening today. What I think is the technology is accelerating, and I think it's accelerating, and I think that, if you're a little bit more of a conspiracy theorist, you have all these antitrust hearings. Everybody's getting pulled except Reed Hastings in front. Google, Twitter, Facebook, they all end up in front of Congress in these antitrust hearings. There's simple deals that'll be made, right? Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to suspend this hearing, but this is what we need. We need access to this. We need access to that. And the government will have access to it, and they'll have their own think tanks and stuff. So I think we're seeing it starting today, and it's only getting bigger. I think you're right.
I'm sure they're so far ahead of it already, and I have no problem with it. If you think that's an invasion of your privacy, stop talking about building bombs online. Then I think if you're doing that and you create that sort of red flag, the government should come knocking on your door. And here's the next question: can they send a drone over you and take you out if you're a real big threat, like we do with terrorists, around the world? But yes,
you went straight from progress to freaking Middle East, a permission to take a guy out. Tom, you went all the way to the end. So
I did.
Yes, you did.
I kind of did fast forward that a little bit.
How many of you that are listening to this right now would be comfortable if we were to get to a point where technology is watching people's behavior online, where it's not necessarily a Facebook watches you talk about the furniture that you want to buy. Next thing you know, 70 furniture ads come up, and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't even touch my phone. These ads come up. But this time around, you're having a conversation. You're sitting with somebody talking about, I'd love to bomb this such and such place or blow this place up. It leads to triggering a federally funded organization that comes out to want to investigate to see why did you say that and why was that come. Would you be comfortable with that if you're listening to this? Would you be comfortable with the government? Because remember, FBI was an idea. Why don't we come out with the Federal Bureau of Investigation? What is it? Here's what it does. CIA was an idea. A lot of these organizations are ideas. Trump just came out with the new the space, what does he call it? Space Force?
Right.
Something like that, Space Force. If I would have told you 10 years ago Space Force, you would have thought it's a Hollywood movie, but it's actually a real thing. Space Force, right? Would people be comfortable with us coming out with an organization that actually studies your behavior and you could get arrested for potentially a future crime you may commit?
Don't forget Homeland Security.
Right.
Homeland Security is brand new spook.
Yep.
Brand new spook. You want to talk?
November of 01 is when it came out.
Brand new. And by the way, if you want to think about surveillance, that's the guys that would have all the permissions. You know, we're doing this to keep America safe. Listen to what they say about the virus, right, Pat? We're doing this. We're doing the lockdown so you can be safe, and people buy into it.
You know who else?
So, oh no, we're doing Homeland Security. We're doing all these things into your background so you can be safe.
Would you be comfortable with that? Would you be comfortable with what I just asked? Kyle, would you be okay with that?
It's like Minority Report.
Yeah, would you be okay with
No.
that? You wouldn't be.
No.
Sam, because a part of the power would be abused, right?
Absolutely. I always go too far.
Sam,
Correct.
are you in the same place as Kyle? Are you also in the same place?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking of the side of like, you know, people say things sometimes out of anger,
Yeah.
out of frustration.
Yeah.
And a mental crime is not the same as a physical crime.
Well, have you ever gotten into a fight with a Middle Eastern? You should see the things they'll say. I swear to God, say that again, I'm going to bomb this place. Like, every Middle Eastern would be arrested in Glendale because when a fight breaks out, they'll say, I'm going to bomb this restaurant. And, you know, people would be, but that's a good point.
Hey, by the way, I'll take the opposite view. I got no problem with it at all.
You have no-
I got no problem at all because I'll tell you why. I got a better chance of getting blown up by some psycho, by getting killed, than I have.
So
of
you're totally cool.
I'm cool with it because I'm not going to build a bomb. I'm not going to talk about it on social media. So I want the idiots that are going to do it to be investigated. You know who else should be investigated? The neighbors that come out the next day and say, oh, he seemed normal. Oh, he was such a nice guy. Investigate them because they're stupid if they can't see some of these clues that this jerk down the block or on the cul-de-sac has an RV and there's a ticking noise coming out of it for the last 3 weeks.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.